everybody on yet another glorious British summer's day in Farnborough, and we have a good show with us. We have a good exhibition, and we have a very strong and powerful group of presenters with us today. And the theme of the day, of course, is space in new direction. I always thought it was just upwards, but it seems we can go in other directions. And the issue of the year is how to get economic growth without undermining the scientific excellence that we have in space. Now we have the Director General of European Space Agency, Jean-Jacques.
Thank you very much. As you can see, not easy for me to speak with the two chair of the Council of ESA on my back. David Williams, the chair of the Council at delegate level, and Minister Profumo, the chair of Council at Ministerial Level. So I shall do my best to tell you what we are doing, and especially what we are doing with UK, since we are here in UK. So I am very glad to be with you today. I must say that when I am looking at the exhibition, with every 2 years more and more exhibition and more actors, when I see the conference, and especially the podium, which is always a wider and wider podium from every 2 years, and when I see the attendance, I must say that I am confident that UK is moving. Things are moving in UK. When I see you that, maybe with one noticeable exception, which is the weather. But okay, that it's. Moving is certainly the only way to take a new direction. So I see space a new direction. The only way to take a new direction is just to move and to change. And ESA is also moving. I would like to say that first, ESA has never been as successful as today. I must say, as you know, I have a long experience at ESA, 26 years, but I have never lived in ESA such a great period of missions and success. Just to take a few on science, and I invite you to visit the exhibition of ESA. On science, we have had the results of Herschel and Planck, which are unique results. We have celebrated 10 years of exploitation of Ambisat, even if today Ambisat is dead. 10 years of operations, delivering data every day to thousands of scientists. And 10 years of operations is 2 times the nominal life of ESA. So this is certainly a great achievement. And also the results of Gauthier, SMOS and Cryosat, the 3 first Earth explorers, and we shall launch before the end of this year the 4th Earth explorer, Swarm, meaning that we are, and I dare to say that, the space agency in the world making the biggest effort in terms of Earth science and its environment. And also you will see on the ESA stand the next mission, the next science mission with Gaia, which will be launched next year. So that it's for science. In terms of services, we have launched the 2 first Galileo satellites on the 21st of October last year. We are now preparing the launch of the 2 next ones, to the point that the first of the 2 ones which will be launched beginning of October will be shipped to Kourou in just 3 weeks from now. And we are already preparing the launch of the 2 first FOC satellites, which will take place in spring next year. So I must say that Galileo is running now. We have launched last week MSG-3, the 3rd satellite of the Meteosat 2nd generation, which is a cooperation between ESA and EUMETSAT. We shall launch Method B in September, and we shall launch ProbaV beginning early next year. So, and that is all missions related to services. Moving on competitiveness, we are celebrating the success of ILAS, the first real public-private partnership that we have developed at ESA, and I would dare to say that it's a virtuous public-private partnership where we have the member states investing in new technology, space industry making this new technology, Ministerial UK, and one operator taking the risk to use this technology to open a new market. And the second of this public-private partnership will be launched next year. This is AlphaSat, which is, and you have a model of AlphaSat also on the ESA stand, a fantastic public-private partnership that we are making with Inmarsat. And there also we are developing new technologies through the member states, and the operator is again taking the risk to use this new technology. We have celebrated last week 49 successful launch of Ariane 5. We have launched Vega on the 13th of February with 7 CubeSat, and I know that Minister Profumo is supporting all what we are doing for the students, and on board Vega there were 7 CubeSats made by students, and we are already preparing the next Vega launch, which will take in orbit probably. In terms of international cooperation, we are now launching 1 ATV per year, and that is a fantastic achievement by European industry also, because ATV is a very complex vehicle. We have had 3 astronauts in orbit, and the last one came back to Earth on the 1st of July, and we have had one of the most fantastic symbols of cooperation between ESA and Russia, the first launch of Soyuz on the 21st of October, and the second launch in December, and we are preparing the third launch of Soyuz from Kourou. So just to say that, yes, ESA is moving, ESA is very successful. But at the same time, ESA has never been in a situation where it had to change, and we have to change. And it can look strange to say that we are successful, but we have to change. And maybe we have to change because we are successful, because this is the only way to stay successful. So we have to change quickly, and we have to change deeply. I think that the economy is now a priority everywhere in the world. Europe has changed quickly. There is new competence in the EU with the Lisbon Treaty. Industry is changing quickly in Europe. The world is changing with new space power, which are introducing new markets but also new competitors. We have the growth of industrial initiative with SpaceX, but also initiative of international cooperation outside the government. So all that, the environment is changing so quickly around us that we have no choice but to change. So we have demonstrated already our capacity to change. I would like to recall that telecommunications today at ESA has nothing to do with telecommunications 10 years ago. I shall always remember when I became Director General, I met one of the CEO of European industry involved in telecom, and he was telling me, telecom with ESA, never. 10 years later, they are queuing at the door of ESA to partner with ESA, which is a good sign. It demonstrates that ESA could change. And it was a total cultural change for ESA. Because for the first time, we had to listen to industry and to operators, and not only to member states. And we are doing telecommunications at ESA now on the requirements coming from industry and operators. And that is a total change. A total change for ESA engineers also. Working for Inmarsat is totally different than working for member states. And all that, we had to do that. But obviously we have to do much more. We have to do much more because this is the only way to continue to be successful. And I have issued last year an Agenda 2015, which is only an agenda for change. Only changes, with 3 drivers: knowledge, services, and competitiveness. And I remember, Mr. Minister, that I have announced that in 1 week 1 year ago, University of Warwick, I have announced the start of Agenda 2050. And 1 year later, I think that we have made a lot of progress in preparing the decisions which will come at the next council at ministerial level. So, yes, we are changing. And I would dare to say, Mr. Minister, that ESA has never looked as British as today, because we are taking competitiveness and growth as the mantra of the next council at ministerial level. And yes, UK has brought a lot to ESA. UK has brought unique scientists, industry, competitive industry operators, and I see on the first row some of them, and I would like to thank you for that, because we have learned from you. And you have brought also the excellence of our. I am always told that ESA will bring something to our, but I feel that our has already brought a lot to ESA. So this is how I take that, and I think that we have learned a lot from UK. But I am sure that UK has received also a lot from ESA. I would not like to give the impression that it's only one way. I think that thanks to our programs, we have offered unique missions to the British scientists. We have supported the competitiveness of UK industry and UK operators, and that could not be achieved with the other member states. I am talking a lot about UK, obviously, but UK, as you know, is not the only member state, and for the time being, not even the biggest contributor. But you are welcome, Mr. Minister. But I think that UK could not succeed without the other member states, and I think that this is the interest of ESA. So now we are preparing the next council at ministerial level, which will take place in Caserta in November, and I would like to thank Minister Profumo for helping us to prepare that. It's a key rendezvous for ESA, but also a key rendezvous for UK. We are preparing that rendezvous with the Minister, with industry, with operators, with the Space Agency, and I think that we have an interesting perspective for more UK ESA and more ESA in UK, and I think that meaning that, Mr. Minister, we shall move together. I think that we shall take a new direction together, and I think that this is the right time for UK and ESA to take a new direction, and the new direction is again competitiveness and growth. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques, for the challenges. The next speaker is David Willetts. He's the Minister of University and Science and has full responsibility for space in the UK. So without any further ado, Minister, I'd like to invite you to come up and make your presentation.
Well, thank you very much indeed, David. It's great to be here. I'd like to welcome our distinguished guests who've already spoken: Francesco Profumo, Enrico Sagese, Vladimir Popovkin, and of course Jean-Jacques Dordain. They're all very welcome here to Farnborough on Space Day, together with Andy Green, who does a great job co-chairing the Space Leadership Council with me, and of course David Williams himself running the UK Space Agency. Well, welcome to Farnborough on a typical English summer's day. It's going to be an interesting summer if the rain carries on like this. I first came as Space Minister to Farnborough 2 years ago, and that was just a few weeks after the new government, the new coalition, had been formed. And I hope that in the 2 years since then, we've now established a track record which makes it absolutely clear of this government's commitment to space as one of the crucial high-tech sectors of the future. We can look back with pride as well on the history that we already have, both in this country and across the world. I think of recently celebrating the 50th anniversary of Yuri Gagarin's first manned flight into space, when we unveiled his statue in London. And earlier this year, marking 50 years of the UK in space, when in 1962 our first satellite, Ariel 1, was launched. And I was delighted that 50 years to the day, on the 26th of April 2012, the UK signed a €300 million contract to build the Solar Orbiter, a pioneering project to better understand how the Sun affects the Earth. It was the largest single contract placed by ESA with the UK space industry in 2 decades, and a great way for us to mark 50 years of scientific and technical advance. We're making a lot of progress at the moment. The UK Space Agency is doing a fine job carrying forward the innovation and growth strategy that we've agreed at the Space Leadership Council. Satellite technology is now an integral part of the government's policy for broadband delivery and in rural and hotspot areas, with public investment of around £40 million, leveraging more than £500 million of capital funds from the market to deliver British-owned and operated services. A good example of the flexibility of the space sector in Britain, combining public and private finance. The space cluster in Harwell and the ESA facility that is so warmly welcomed there is up and running, and it's already met its first target of establishing 10 new companies in its first year. It's actually got 12 firms already located there, with a further 3 to join them. We've had the first results from Cryosat, quantifying the polar ice sheets. We just delivered to NASA the first instrument for the James Webb Space Telescope, the giant successor to Hubble. And thanks to British expertise, we can look forward to a Planck satellite delivering a detailed map of the echoes of the Big Bang. So there's a lot going on both in commerce and in research, contributing to the dynamism of the British space sector, and we are publishing today the latest update on the size and health of the UK industry. And it's very encouraging. It shows that growth remains positive at 7.5% a year over the latest survey. The sector was worth over £9 billion in 2010-11, compared to £7.5 billion in 8-9. It's providing 29,000 jobs for skilled workers. It is indeed one of our key high-tech industries. Space-related technologies are moving fast, and nowhere more so than in launch systems. This is an area where the likes of Virgin Galactic and potentially the Skylon space plane being developed by Reaction Engines really could be game changers. The US, it appears, is sticking with SpaceX's traditional launcher model, while our Russian colleagues here continue to provide a very valuable and reliable service through Soyuz. But that presents an opportunity for us in the UK to seize the advantage in terms of both technology and regulation, with space tourism and commercial reusable access to space now only just beyond the horizon. But Europe must be ready to grab this opportunity, and my fear is that we will lose out unless we formulate a regulatory framework that will allow reusable aircraft-type launches to operate here. I understand that Reaction Engines are making a significant announcement this afternoon regarding progress on their pre-cooler technology. Their Sabre engine already represents 30 years of incredible British R&D. It's a remarkable world first, and the pace at which they're advancing illustrates the urgency of laying the appropriate groundwork now. So I can announce today that I'll be working with my colleague Justine Greening at the Department for Transport to determine how the UK, indeed the whole of Europe, can best position itself to take advantage of space plane activities. We will be exploring the type of certification needed for spacecraft and identifying the crucial operational characteristics for an operational spaceport. Antonio Tajani, the European Competition Commissioner, has already agreed to pursue this matter with the European Air Safety Agency. Another area where I'm keen to see further progress is at Harvard. We've already funded the development of the International Space Innovation Centre, and last year's £10 million investment in the National Space Technology Programme has brought in an extra £17 million from other sources. Some 50 new projects are already underway as a result. And I'm delighted to announce today that our next Technology Innovation Centre will be located at Farnborough. We have branded our Technology Innovation Centres catapults, catapult centres, catapult in synthetic biology, catapult in smart cities. But as Jean-Jacques has pointed out, the one in space, catapult satellite applications, has a rather confusing meaning. But nevertheless, at Harwell, we're confident it will give real impetus to commercial development from our space assets. And today we're also announcing the Technology Strategy Board Delivery Programme, £250 million from its budget for spending on innovation over the coming financial year, including at least £10 million for space. The bigger picture, of course, is making sure that space continues to be a key enabler of economic growth, and that's the central goal of the revised civil space strategy that I'm also publishing here today. The document covers the next 4 years. It focuses on creating new opportunities for industry, bolstering the role of space in the UK's infrastructure, and furthering the National Space Technology Programme. And it certainly captures the breadth of activity falling within the Space Agency's remit. Security also matters, and I recently met with colleagues in France to discuss that. We agreed on the importance of space situational awareness, addressing the small but growing risk of satellites crashing into each other or colliding with other debris. It's an area where we've tended to rely on the USA for information, but the UK does need to consider taking responsibility for managing its own issues. This is important in the context of our own satellites and those we share with our European partners. We have already achieved considerable technological advances. The smallest object we can currently track in low Earth orbit is equivalent to spotting a tennis ball at a distance of 3,000 kilometres, which is better even than Andy Murray can achieve. And it's vital that the UK has the capability to predict potential collisions with space debris or other satellites, and the Space Agency, together with other government departments, will be determining the scope of that capability in ways that are complementary to both our US and our European friends. Let me conclude by looking forward to November and the event hosted by our Italian friends. It's an important year for ESA with that Ministerial Council. The backdrop for the meeting is inevitably uncertain given Europe's economic troubles. Nevertheless, as I wait for advice from the Space Leadership Council, I very much hope that Britain can reach a point where we will see the role of ESA strengthened both in this country and across Europe. There are several important European programmes which will require attention, not least the ESA missions to Mars in 2016 and 2018, for which our Council hosts are also our major European partner. And I am pleased that we have now identified a viable way forward for ExoMars following NASA's withdrawal from the project last year, and I repeat my gratitude to our Russian friends for stepping into the breach to work with us and other ESA member states so that the mission can proceed. And I look forward to the important role that Astra will be playing in that mission, extending our export drive to other parts of the solar system. So let me welcome you once again here to Farnborough and hand over to my co-chair on the UK Space Leadership Council, Andy Green. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, David. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to respond to the remarks of a really distinguished panel of speakers, I think you'll agree. I'm really delighted that we see those growth figures. Now, many things in the UK economically seem difficult, many things in Europe. 7.5% growth is a really strong performance. As I'll talk later, if only there were more sectors where we put together a room of people like this, with entrepreneurs, with exporters, with people who are prepared to work together across government, across agencies, and across industry to make a difference, then I think Europe's whole economic set of issues could really be addressed much faster. It's a year of sport here in Europe, and we've already seen European football competition with space beaming TV images all over the world. But now we're moving on in 17 days to the Olympic Games. In my lifetime, the Olympic Games was a rather small local event. Now it's a global thing. You can watch it in 3D in many places. And if you think about what's happened over that period, it's just as much the thousands of great people working in Astrium factories in Stevenage and Portsmouth, and those of their suppliers elsewhere in Britain, plus the real innovation of companies like Inmarsat and Avanti around Silicon Roundabout that are part of the UK's contribution to the Olympics as those great stadiums in East London. We're also seeing the beginnings of Galileo, and this is going to be a really exciting project. We see a great British contribution there again with Astrium, Logica, Kinetic, getting it off the ground, getting the security in place, getting those critical integration tasks together that will make it a great platform for applications across the world. Space is really a down-to-earth business, a commercial one. And that's what I think is so exciting about Britain's contribution to space. It's the commercial underpinning of the civil space strategy that David has just announced that is crucial if we're going to do the science and environmental monitoring that so many of the speakers have talked about. We cannot rely on ever-increasing public funds to do all this work. We need to be using space as a commercially viable way of doing business in order to do the things that are necessary in science and environmental space. 3 or 4 years ago, this sort of event would have felt very different. Before the Innovation and Space Group came together and set out the ambition for 100,000 jobs by 2030 here in the UK, and to drive the space industry as to be a real growth engine for the UK, we would have felt, as we talked privately, that industry wasn't very keen on what government was doing. The agencies didn't like what the ministers were doing. They thought that industry was not engaged and driving. As I listen to people in all those conversations around now, I see what can happen if we can get ministers, government, the agencies and industry working together. We heard from Jean-Jacques the importance of the sort of work that we've been doing around HILAS and other such projects to really transform the way that money is brought together between government, between agencies and between the commercial world to make a difference and to drive forward these key projects. I can't agree with Jean-Jacques more that this is a synergistic relationship. The UK gets a lot from the European Space Agency, and the UK, particularly with its innovative approach to bringing business and space together, brings a lot to the European Space Agency as well. I'm very grateful to David Willits personally, though, for the leadership he has shown. And his speech, I think, said it all. We've made enormous progress on a wide range of activities. We now have a national space technology program. We've never had one before. We are clearly aiming to step up our contributions to the European Space Agency, and we're working together to make sure that we do that in a way that brings the maximum commercial advantage to the companies that operate in the UK. In industry, we're waiting carefully for the National Space Security Policy and the bringing together of the National Space Security Policy with the technology programme and the commercial policy to produce an overall pan-government national space policy. We've seen how coordination, to the level we've taken it so far, can make a real difference. We can create a model here for how we can develop a vibrant sector together with government successfully going forward. Now, I focused greatly on UK matters so far, but this has been a very international audience. And if you think about this exhibition area, the Space Pavilion 3 years ago, and you look at it now, what you see is a sense of the vibrancy that's been created. A really international, significant space showing enormous amount of innovation, not here just in the UK, but also with the way that UK is attracting other people to work with UK business to create success. And as I said, as you go around and talk to people, you hear the sort of innovation, the sort of entrepreneurial drive, the export-led stories from the people around here, which are the demonstration of the value that we can create by working together in this way. As everybody has said, Europe is very much on all our minds at the moment. Not just because of the financial crisis, but because of this key event in late November where European ministers will meet together to agree the policies and programs for the European Space Agency for the next 5 years. I don't envy them their task. The environment in which they're taking those decisions is very difficult, and they face many and complex decisions. But I urge them to keep in mind throughout the need for Europe to remain competitive in what is a global marketplace. We cannot afford space programs that address scientific and social objectives unless the industry that will provide them is successful or on a much wider commercial export-driven marketplace. This is why AlphaSat and these other things are so important. ESA has shown under Jean-Jacques stewardship an ability to adopt commercial ways of doing business, and I expect and hope that the continued effectiveness and reduced costs will carry on. We can afford to be upbeat about this though. We get a much bigger bang for our buck in space today than we did 20 years ago. Surrey satellites, reaction engines, Clyde Space and others in the UK are leading the world in putting all that into practice. So we are achieving great things in space. And we've shown, I think, that together with the other big blocks around the world, we in Europe can deliver the most advanced space systems. What I'd like all the speakers to understand is that UK industry remains ready and willing to help the UK, Europe and the world deliver a space vision over the next decade. Thank you very much.